that photo. I'm going to repose that photo. Jerry.
Basketball megastar Michael Jordan announcing his retirement from the game of basketball. He said physically he feels great, but he's no longer mentally challenged by the game. It's difficult to walk away, he says, because he's truly giving up something he loves, but he's glad because his life will be entering a new phase. He said he expected to spend a lot more time with his family, particularly with his kids. His wife, Juanita, joked he expects to see him doing a lot more carpooling. He said he tried to be the best basketball player he could be, and he certainly was that. He led the Chicago Bulls to 6 NBA championships. 10 times he led the NBA in scoring, and 5 times he was elected the most valuable player. We'll have more on the retirement of Michael Jordan after this break.
Chicago Bulls among the storied teams in NBA and sports history.
The first thing I have to do as a Bull this year is just take myself away from the past. Nobody guarantees you in your sports career that you're going to always be winning the championships and always play for a great team.
Spectacular by Michael Jordan. Michael will take it. He fouled. He scores. Superman's back in the building. Drive, hangs, fires, scores.
It's astonishing because the interest level is such that I have no interest in watching the Bulls play. I feel badly for them. They have almost no chance to succeed, and you never want to see an athlete in a position where he knows he can't succeed.
I am here to announce my retirement from the game of basketball. I think the ownership here, the organization is pushing to try to put this team back on the championship level, and I hope that I can be the one that come in and can fill that gap.
Some people will always blame the Bulls management for Jordan leaving prematurely, for Pippen being traded and not being paid and not ending his career as a Bull. Reinsdorf and Krause were never popular figures in Chicago. They will never be popular figures, but I think there is an understanding by at least a large group of people that there was some level of this being inevitable, and the question will be whether they can get back and be competitive, and I think that's what they'll be judged harshly on if they're not.
Well, it was a shock for me to go back there last week and play against them and witness the atmosphere. I mean, the place was quiet and the fans seemed almost confused, and I didn't recognize half the faces on the other team.
I think that it was their prerogative to choose what direction they wanted to take this franchise in. There was too much bitterness there to go back and try to mend all of that.
We don't have a real identity right now because we don't know who we are. It's obvious we don't even know what our rotation is.
It's going to take a while, because what they're in a position to do now is they're at ground zero. They have almost no pieces. They're going to have to be in a position to get 4 or 5 or 6 different pieces together.
That's a big crash to the fairy tale, It's and that shows you that we all have the chance to rebuild, rebirth. There's always that chance to come again because nothing stays the same.
They're saying we're going to be the prime place. We're going to have the most money available. We're going to have high draft picks from being this horrible team that we're going to be to get the right player. To be in the draft the year that a Tim Duncan or a Shaquille O'Neal comes out. The question will be if they're lucky enough. And what people forget about is the Bulls were terrible for year after year after year and then fell into Michael Jordan. They'll have to be really lucky, and very, very rarely do you get lucky twice. nobody expected all these young players to re-sign up with their team. Ceilings were put in, and the Bulls' view of it was that they could steal one of these young players like an Antoine Walker, Sharif Abdur-Rahim. So I think it's pushed them back another year or two, and I don't think they'll be good next year. So I think as a result, it's going to be a very, very difficult season for Tim Floyd, the coach especially, and for the organization.
Well, we should point out that we asked Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf to take part in these interviews, and they declined. Isaiah, you've had to build a team from the ground up, former GM of the Toronto Raptors. What do you think of their strategy for rebuilding the Bulls?
Well, I don't think you start from ground zero. I think where Chicago is trying to start from right now in terms of starting from zero is very flawed. You had a chance to keep Pippen. You had a chance to keep Longley, Kerr. That's the foundation and the core of your team. Even though Jordan has left, you can still build from that. You don't have to go all the way down to zero. If you have Pippen, KUKOC, Longley, Kerr, maybe you renounce Rodman, you still have a solid foundation, and you can attract more free agents with that team.
I'm not sure that they could have kept Longley and Kerr, but I'm absolutely sure they could have kept Scottie Pippen. He wanted to stay there. So how many teams could say that they have a Scottie Pippen and a Toni Kukoc going for them? Then you can rebuild around them this year, remain competitive, especially this season with all the injuries in the East. The Bulls definitely could have competed for the championship there. And then bring in Stephon Marbury next year. Ron Harper, his contract is up after this year. Marbury, I'm told, wants to play for the Bulls. There'll be enough money for him one way or the other. He wants to play in a major market and then rebuild through the draft. But you can do it while you're winning.
Hey, Peter, what most managers think that is that if you have a lot of money, you can attract that player. But players want to win championships, and they are more attracted to winning championships than they are money. At least the good players are.
No, I think that's true. But in Marbury's case, I think he wants a major market, and the money will be there. And again, if Pippen had been there, he definitely would have been attracted. But I still think he is going to wind up there. I think Krause wants to prove what a genius he is. The lower the team drops down, if he's able to build him up, the bigger a genius he looks like. And in the meantime, he can milk the martyrdom that comes with it.
Well, our triple header tips off shortly. First up, Detroit and San Antonio from the Alamo Dome. Some of you will see the Bulls and the Knicks in New York. And then it's off to Orlando for the Magic and the Houston Rockets. We'll cap the day with a big Pacific Division clash between the Lakers and Sonics from Seattle, while some of you will see the Nets and the Pacers in our late game. The NBA on NBC continues after these messages from your local station.